Anybody who knows anything about Kenyan roads will fully support a traffic crackdown. Kenyan roads are a major killer. Thousands of Kenyans lose their lives. Many more thousands are left as orphans and widows as a result of road accidents. Yes, it's a very serious problem. You would have to be crazy out of your mind if you didn't support a traffic crackdown to bring order and sanity into our roads in Kenya. However, the ongoing traffic crackdown is not about bringing sanity to our roads. No, it isn't. And that is the very sad thing. Because when you do something, anything, and you have your objectives wrong, then definitely you're not going to be able to achieve what you want to achieve in the first place. I will give you an example. If you have a village where most kids don't go to school, the way to solve this problem is not to establish expensive private schools in the area and then report those parents who are not taking their children to school to the local chief, so that action can be taken against them. You would not be addressing the problem. What you'd be doing is looking for a way to enrich yourself. And you can give all the press conferences you want to give, and you can do all kinds of promotions, promoting yourself as an educator, promoting yourself as somebody who wants to solve the problem of the people. But at the end of the day, the truth is, your objectives are wrong. They're mixed up. So, what is the ongoing traffic crackdown all about? I think some of you already know. And if you don't know, you're in for a big shock. The major objective of the current massive arrests of people on roads, owners of commuter vehicles, owners of private vehicles, etc., is to raise money for a cash-strapped government. In the first week alone of this major traffic purge, a total of 22,000, in fact more than 22,000 offenders were arrested and charged. Of course, this included pedestrians crossing the road at the wrong place. Yes, it's an offense. It also included people not fastening their seatbelts. But the major target were public service vehicles. We call them matatus in Kenya. Now, owners of commuter vehicles were being fined 100,000 shillings, actually between 100,000 shillings and 150,000 Kenya shillings. That is roughly between $1,000 and $1,500 US. Now, let's do a bit of quick math. Now, let's take the minimum. They were being charged, which was about 100,000 Kenya shillings. Okay? If you arrest only 1,000 people, and we know not only 1,000 vehicles were arrested, there are many more. But let's assume you arrest 1,000 vehicles. You know how much money that is? That is 100 million Kenya shillings. Now, if you still don't believe this was a money-making venture, sample this. Courts made arrangements for M-Pesa agents and KCB agents, to be in the court vicinity to ease the payment of fines. Very thoughtful government. They don't want people to be inconvenienced, and therefore they're trying to make it very easy for you to pay your fines. Really? Do you believe that even for a minute? Now, I got information from somebody which at first I did not believe. I didn't want to believe. And they told me, wait for this one, that the government actually had a cash target attached to this crackdown. Calculations were done before the operation started. And this target had to be met during the first week. Now, it is common knowledge that this so-called crackdown eased after the first week, meaning that the target was reached. Now, you guys know that I disagree with Hezron most of the times. We don't agree. However, it is also true that no matter how ridiculous what he says sounds, most of the time is normally right. And maybe I should start listening to him more seriously, because he's one of the first people who alerted me and I just dismissed it. Nakwambia Chris, hii ni mshahara ya majeshi inatafutwa. Jeshi ama polisi? Well, we're headed to the end of the month. And there's overwhelming and still mounting evidence to prove that Hezron was right. Yeah, this money was being raised by the government for a purpose. Now, if I can remind you of something most of us have already forgotten, maybe it will shed more light into this. You remember that initially the government had suggested that they were going to add another tax because petrol in our country is already overtaxed. Yeah? So they said they were going to add another tax, a 16% VAT on fuel. Kenyans went berserk. You remember what happened? And finally, the government was forced to reduce it to 8%. Now you'll remember that what the government said is that they were going to find other things to tax. Yeah, they were going to find other ways to raise the shortfall. But to date, we have not been told what these other ways are. Now we also know something else, that pressure for money is going to dramatically increase for the government before it reduces. Why? Simply because when the economy is not doing well, taxes go down. Because for the government to earn taxes, people need to do business. They need to generate income so as to pay taxes. If people are not generating incomes, no taxes. It's as simple as that. You can't make 0 Kenya shillings and then have to pay tax. What are you paying tax on? You will need to make 100 shillings, go into a shop to buy airtime, because there's a tax on credit, airtime. So if you don't have airtime and you have to tell your friends to Sambaza, you have not made the government any money because you have made 0 shillings, you can't afford to buy airtime, no taxes. So you can imagine in an economy where people don't have money, there are no taxes being collected. So you have to come up with more creative ways. For instance, you can arrest a poor Kenyan traveling to work or traveling going to look for employment, and you can arrest them for not fastening their seatbelt and charge them 500. Now obviously this poor Kenyan doesn't have the money, but when you lock him up, the money will be found from relatives, friends, etc. They will raise the 500 and rescue their friend. Of course, there are a few very desperate cases where somebody will not be able to raise 500 shillings, and therefore they'll have to spend 30 days in jail. That is what the law says. Now, don't get me wrong. Of course, this is a good thing, because if somebody is jailed for 30 days, next time they'll never forget to fasten their seatbelt. And therefore, in the distant future, or even tomorrow, you may save their lives if they're in a vehicle and an accident occurs. That is correct, and I get that. However, I started this by telling you the objectives are wrong. For instance, most accidents happen at night. Most serious accidents happen at night. There are no traffic policemen on the roads at night. In fact, there are very few. And they get even fewer and even scarcer as the night proceeds. And we know the later it is in the night, the higher the chances of a fatal, serious road accident that will claim many Kenyan lives. However, if the government was to tell the traffic policemen to sleep during the day and work at night, the government would obviously not be able to meet their target, their revenue-generating targets. In other words, what I'm saying is that the current crackdown, traffic crackdown, is much more effective in raising revenue for a very broke government than it is in bringing back sanity to our roads and saving Kenyan lives. Now, my big point here is the reason why Kenyans are going through all this suffering. The reason why the government needs to desperately look for ways to raise revenue. And what is the reason? The reason is massive corruption and embezzlement of public funds. Billions was borrowed by the country, but most of it went into people's pockets. Most of it enriched a few individuals. And because of this stealing, massive theft, the government coffers are empty. And the government needs money to run. So where does the government turn to? it turns to you and me, the ordinary people. And the government reaches into our pockets and takes money from us. In other words, ordinary Kenyans are not the cause of the current problems, financial problems the government is facing. However, even though ordinary Kenyans were not involved, they are the ones paying the price. In other words, they are paying somebody else's bill. Now, how annoying can that be? And they're using very nice language to siphon money from people's pockets. They're saying traffic crackdown to bring sanity to our roads. All that makes perfect sense. However, what they're not telling us is that we're doing this to raise money, to meet shortfalls, in government. And actually, that is the main objective. And the saddest thing of all, I don't think it's over. In fact, this is only the beginning. That Christmas money that you have carefully budgeted, I have bad news for you. The government is already eyeing it. So when you're rushing home for your Christmas holidays and vehicles are very few and you have to squeeze yourself into an overcrowded vehicle, you're in trouble. Because you lose a lot of that money you're carrying home for Christmas. You will lose it to the government because salaries also have to be paid in December. Oh boy, life in Kenya is very difficult, and it's going to get even more difficult in the days to come. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but the financial crunch, bado, it's yet to come. And when it comes, God help us all. Until next time, this is Kshs, Kumekucha.